What if we told you that in one of the richest countries in the world, a generation is being locked out of homeownership not because they're lazy, not because they spend too much on takeout, but because the entire system is rigged against them? That's not a conspiracy theory. That's just Britain in 2025.
If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Your feedback helps shape what we cover next, and you being here keeps the conversation going. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
And if you're dreaming of buying, go ahead and keep dreaming unless your parents happen to be sitting on a six-figure estate. This isn't a blip. This is a full-blown structural failure. A 20-year slow-motion disaster that everyone saw coming, and no one stopped. Let's rewind, because this horror show has a backstory. Back in 2004, a review by economist Kate Barker laid it all out. She warned that Britain wasn't building enough homes and that prices were going to explode if something didn't change. It was like a polite, academic scream into the void. But politicians nodded, filed the report, and just moved on. Fast forward to decades and here we are. The average home in England costs £290,000. Meanwhile, the median household income is about £37,000. That's nearly 8 times the average salary. And in London, forget it. Affordability ratios are pushing 27-1. That's not a housing market, that's a fantasy novel. So how did we get here? How did an entire country let housing become so unattainable that it's basically an inheritance lottery ticket? Well, let's start with the fact that we never built enough. Ever. Demand kept growing, but construction didn't. And in the few places where building did happen, it was usually luxury flats nobody could afford. Because why build affordable homes when you can build glass towers for offshore investors? It's like the system looked at a basic human need, shelter, and said, what if we turned this into a speculative financial asset and let the chips fall where they may? Spoiler, they fell. And they fell hard. By 2025, construction in London is practically dead. Just 16 new development sites out of over 1,400 were greenlit. 16? That's barely enough to house a medium-sized friend group. And it's not just London. The whole country's development pipeline is drying up. Why? Because building a house in Britain has become like solving a bureaucratic escape room. You've got outdated planning systems, local councils terrified of upsetting NIMBY voters, sky-high material costs, labor shortages, and developers sitting on land just waiting for it to appreciate. Meanwhile, 280,000 approved homes in London are just not being built. They're stuck in limbo. Ghost homes. But let's talk about the people caught in the middle of all this. Because it's not just about abstract numbers and charts. It's about lives, entire generations being priced out, boxed in, and pushed aside. Young professionals in their 20s and 30s, they're not saving for a deposit, they're saving just to make it through the month. The average rent in London. It'll eat half your salary, if you're lucky. Want to buy? Well, unless mum and dad can spot you £50,000, you're not even getting through the front door. We've entered the age of the inheritocracy, where your shot at owning property depends less on your job and more on your bloodline. If your parents own, you win. If not, enjoy renting forever. That's the game now. And it's not just unfair, it's structurally broken. And that divide is deepening fast. Because while parts of Wales or Northern Ireland are still relatively affordable, the jobs aren't there. So people are forced to choose, stay somewhere you can live, or go somewhere you can work. But not both. This is how talent gets lost, how young families get broken up, how dreams get shelved, and the knock-on effects are brutal. Couples are delaying having kids. People are living in overcrowded flats. Mental health is suffering. Homelessness is rising, especially in London, where more and more people are being forced into temporary accommodation that's anything but temporary. Right now, over 336,000 people are on social housing waiting lists. That's not just a number. That's hundreds of thousands of families, children, pensioners, people with nowhere stable to go. And here's the kicker. While all this unfolds, the government is scrambling with short-term fixes that feel more like PR moves than actual solutions. Loosen planning laws, a few more powers for local councils, some pilot programs for affordable housing. But the big stuff, reforming the entire planning system, investing in social housing on a wartime scale, scaling up modular or 3D printed construction to slash costs and time. Crickets. There's no long-term vision, no real urgency, just a patchwork of policies trying to hold together a house of cards. And you can't fix a structural collapse with a coat of paint. What's wild is that we know how to solve this. Other countries have done it. Even Britain did it post-World War II, when we had bombed out cities and a desperate need for homes. Back then, we didn't wring our hands, we built. Fast, at scale. But that kind of ambition requires political courage. And right now, courage is in shorter supply than affordable flats in Zone 2. Instead, housing is still being treated like a stock portfolio. A place to park wealth, not live in. And as long as that's the mindset, nothing meaningful will change. Because you can't serve to masters. You can't treat housing as both a basic human right and a financial investment. Eventually, one of those has to win. Guess which one has been winning for 20 years? And here's where it gets really dystopian. This isn't just about money anymore, it's about identity. Homeownership has long been sold as a marker of success, of adulthood, of stability. But for millions, that's permanently out of reach. And that shift, it changes the fabric of society. We're talking about a generation that feels locked out of the future. No home, no savings, no shot at owning anything substantial. Just rent, debt.
If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Your feedback helps shape what we cover next, and you being here keeps the conversation going. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
And what are we left with? A broken system propped up by nostalgia and denial. A country where housing policy isn't about solving a crisis, it's about not upsetting homeowners. So where does that leave us now? At the edge? Because let's be honest, this isn't sustainable. You can't keep locking people out of homes, driving up inequality, and pretending everything's fine. Eventually, the system snaps. And when it does, it won't be quiet. So here's your mock moral of the story. Maybe, just maybe, turning homes into speculative assets wasn't the best idea. Maybe treating housing like a basic human right would have worked out better for literally everyone. But hey, hindsight is 20/20ths, especially when you're looking at it from your childhood bedroom at 32. Now it's your turn. Drop a comment. What's the wildest rent you've paid? Do you think the government will ever fix this mess? Or are we just doomed to live in converted sheds forever? And if you want more breakdowns of modern chaos, celebrity implosions, and political train wrecks, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, and buckle up, because the meltdown isn't over. Not even close. It's not just a matter of building more houses or tweaking a few planning policies. No, this is a full-blown, multi-layered societal implosion, and every time you peel back a layer, you uncover another tangled mess of bad decisions, political cowardice, and economic delusion. Let's talk about planning. The big, bloated elephant in the room. The UK's planning system is, to put it mildly, a Kafkaesque nightmare. It was designed in a completely different era, for a completely different housing landscape. And now, it's like trying to play Fortnite on a Nokia 3310. It takes years to get projects approved. Developers have to jump through flaming hoops of paperwork, consultations, appeals, and regulations, only to be blocked at the last second by local councils terrified of upsetting residents who think affordable housing means their property value might dip by 0.5%. And those councils, they're stuck, too. Because while they technically have the power to greenlight developments, they're under constant pressure from voters who have one mission in life: keep everything exactly the same forever. These folks, the NIMBYs, the gatekeepers of middle-class suburbia, have an iron grip on the political process. They show up to local meetings. They file complaints. They know how to use bureaucracy as a weapon. And they've effectively made it impossible to build the kinds of dense, affordable housing that cities actually need. So instead, we get weird, piecemeal developments on the outskirts of towns. We get overpriced student boxes. We get 50 luxury apartments on land that could have housed 200 working families. And even when something does get approved, it's often tied up in Section 106 agreements. Those are deals where developers promise to include a certain percentage of affordable housing or pay for local infrastructure, which sounds good in theory until you realize that developers can just wriggle out of them by claiming it's not financially viable. Oh, sorry, we'd love to include affordable homes, but our profit margin might drop from 23% to 19%, and we simply can't have that. You think I'm exaggerating, but this happens constantly. The system rewards delay, loopholes, and land hoarding. That's right, developers are sitting on land they've already gotten permission to build on. Why? Because the value goes up the longer they wait. So now you've got thousands, literally thousands of homes that could be built today, but aren't. Just empty land, waiting. Not for people, for profit. Meanwhile, the actual construction industry is stuck in the Stone Age. Most homes in the UK are still built using outdated, labor-intensive methods that haven't changed much since the post-war era. And we're in the middle of a labor shortage. Materials are expensive. Supply chains are fragile. Modular housing, building homes in factories and assembling them on-site should be the future. It's faster. It's cheaper. It's more sustainable. But good luck getting that scaled in a system this dysfunctional. Because even when the tech is ready, the red tape isn't. The planning system doesn't know how to handle modular builds. Lenders don't trust them. Insurance companies are skeptical. And just like that, another potential solution is buried under a pile of maybe later. So, what do people do in the meantime? They rent. But not the kind of renting that makes sense, no. This is renting as survival. Renting as punishment. Renting as a permanent state of anxiety. Tenants in the UK have some of the weakest protections in Western Europe. Evictions can happen with barely any notice. Rent can be raised year after year, unchecked. And if you complain, well, your landlord might just decide to reclaim the property. You know what that means. Pack your things. Start over. Again. And while you're trying to find a new place, you're fighting off dozens, sometimes hundreds of other desperate renters for the same flat. It's Hunger Games with slightly better flooring. The rental crisis is so bad that people are now bidding on properties. As in, offering more than the listed rent just to secure the place. It's like eBay for shelter. Let's not forget the rise of rogue landlords, people stuffing beds into garden sheds, charging £1,200 a month for box rooms, or renting to 10 people in a space meant for 3. And enforcement, rare. Because local councils are underfunded, overworked, and drowning in paperwork. So now we've created a situation where the poorest are living in the worst conditions, paying the most money, with the least security and no clear path out. It's not just inequality anymore. It's cruelty dressed up as policy. And the human toll is staggering. Homelessness is up. Mental health is deteriorating. Couples are breaking up because they can't afford to move in together. Families are splitting apart. Young people are stuck in toxic environments because moving out isn't financially possible. Even basic life milestones, marriage, children, stability are being postponed indefinitely. Not because people don't want them, but because they literally can't afford them. We've created a generational bottleneck. A societal traffic jam where everyone is stalled in place, waiting for some magical exit ramp that never arrives. And the government's response? Mostly vibes. They tinker around the edges, announce flashy initiatives, rebrand failed policies with new names, but the big structural stuff, the real change that's needed, it never comes. Because real reform would mean upsetting powerful people. It would mean challenging the idea that housing is an investment vehicle. It would mean building things that aren't profitable but necessary. And no one wants to be the politician who crashed the housing market. But here's the thing, it's already crashing. Not in prices, in humanity. People are being crushed under the weight of a system that no longer serves them. A system that once promised work hard, buy a home, live in security, but now just shrugs and says, good luck. There's no safety net, no guarantee, just the slow grind of rent increases, vanishing options, and the gnawing fear that you're always one bad month away from disaster. And we're supposed to just accept this. To nod and smile while politicians promise affordable starter homes that cost £400,000. No. People are waking up. They're angry. They're organizing. Renters' unions are growing. Activists are fighting back. And while the system is still monstrously difficult to change, the pressure is building. Because one thing is clear, this isn't working. Housing should not be a luxury. It should not be a gamble. It should not be a reward for being born into the right family. It should be a right. And until that becomes the national mindset, until we stop treating shelter like a speculative asset and start treating it like oxygen, we're just going to keep spiraling. So here's the final question. How long are we going to let this continue? How long before someone finally says enough is enough? The British housing crisis didn't appear overnight. It was built, brick by brick, policy by policy, decade by decade. And unless something really changes, it's going to keep collapsing in slow motion, crushing everyone who didn't buy in time. Think about that the next time someone tells you to stop complaining and just save up. And while you're at it, tell us your story. Are you renting a glorified cupboard for the price of a small yacht? Did you have to move back in with your parents after turning 30? Or are you just exhausted by the sheer impossibility of it all? Drop a comment, let it out. And if you're into more deep dives on messes like this, celebrity disasters, corporate flops, societal breakdowns, subscribe. We've got plenty more meltdowns where this came from. Because this isn't just a housing crisis. It's a mirror. And the reflection, it's brutal. If you're thinking, surely this has to turn around soon, I hate to break it to you, but Britain's housing story doesn't come with a third act redemption arc. Not yet, anyway. We're still spinning in circles, and the chaos is now baked into every level of the system. Take social housing. Or should I say, the ghost of social housing, because what used to be a safety net for working class families is now more like a raffle with 336,000 names in the draw. And barely any winning tickets. Remember when social housing was a public good? When council estates were built with pride, with real architecture, with functioning infrastructure and community spaces? That version of Britain is long gone. It's been replaced by decades of sell-offs, underfunding, and an obsession with right-to-buy schemes that handed out discounts like candy but never replaced the homes taken off the books. So now, the wait list for social housing is a black hole. You apply. You wait. You check back 5 years later. Maybe you've moved 3 times since then, couch-surfed, or gotten priced out of your borough entirely. Maybe you've had a kid. Maybe you've gone into debt. The list doesn't care. It just grows. Local authorities can't keep up. The funding isn't there. The land isn't there. The political backing? Non-existent. Everyone talks about affordable housing targets like they're goals for a corporate PowerPoint deck, but the reality is, what gets built is rarely truly affordable. And here's the catch. The government's definition of affordable is completely detached from actual incomes. We're talking 80% of market rent. In London, 80% of a rent that's already unaffordable for most people is still unaffordable. But hey, it sounds generous, right? That's how the system gets away with it, by manipulating language. They call it affordable. They call it help. But it's just spin. Behind the slogans and the banners and the ribbon-cutting ceremonies, the machine is still broken. And the people it's failing. They're real. Let's talk about the invisible army propping up the cities: the nurses, the teachers, the delivery drivers, the cleaners, the folks keeping the lights on, the trains running, the hospitals open. These are the people who are being told, in so many words, we love your service, but we don't want you living here. They're commuting 2 hours in from distant postcodes because it's the only way they can survive. They're raising kids in overcrowded flats. They're applying for help and getting placed in temporary accommodation that lasts for years. Thanks so much for watching. If you made it all the way to the end, you're officially part of the small percentage of people who don't just click away, and that means a lot. Before you go, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me your thoughts, your ideas, or even what you'd like to see next. I read every single one of them, and your feedback genuinely shapes the direction of this channel. If you enjoyed the video, tap that like button. It tells YouTube this content is worth sharing. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next upload. We've got more exciting videos coming, and trust me, you'll want to be here for them. This channel is just getting started, and your support helps it grow faster than you realize. Thank you again for spending a part of your day here with me. Stay curious, stay motivated, and as always, take care of yourself. Until next time, I'll see you in the next video.